Alexander was 37 years old, the eldest child, the one who always fixed things. He was a neurosurgeon. He lived out of a locker at the hospital and a suitcase at home. His life moved in pages of 4 a.m. schedules. He didn't drink much. He ran when he could. He saved almost everything he earned because he had grown up on overdraft fees and his parents' phrase, "We'll see next month." As a boy, Alexander had been the one who translated grown-up panic. "It'll be fine," he would say at 10 years old while his mother cried over late rent. That was when he learned the taste of fear and the shape of emergencies. He learned how to be useful. 2 weeks earlier, his parents had celebrated 50 years of marriage. Alexander wanted them to have a real win. A home that smelled like salt in the air, where the floors didn't squeak, and nothing reminded them of coupons or second-hand furniture. He found a small blue house above the water. It was a little crooked, yes, but warm and peaceful, with a white deck, 2 palm trees out front, and windows that sang when the wind came in from the bay. The price was $425,000. He bought it in their names, set up the utilities, stocked the fridge, and hid a note in the silverware drawer that read, "For late mornings and loud laughter. Love, Alex." He didn't tell anyone else, not even his sister. On the anniversary day, Alexander drove down with a cake and a bottle of sparkling cider. The ocean looked clear, and the sky was annoyingly perfect. He felt stupidly happy. But when he parked in the driveway, another SUV was already there. That wasn't right. The front door was wide open, the screen banging softly in the wind. Alexander stepped inside. His mother, Deborah, stood in the kitchen holding a dish towel like a white flag. Her eyes were red. His father, Gabriel, sat in a chair with hunched shoulders and trembling hands. Boxes were scattered everywhere. Loud voices came from the hallway, and a child's cartoon blared in the living room. A television he hadn't even turned on. "Mom!" Alexander called softly, but before she could answer, someone appeared. It was his brother-in-law Johnson, barefoot, holding a beer, wearing a football shirt. He planted himself in front of Gabriel, jabbed a finger toward the door, and shouted, "This is my house. Get out." From the couch, Alexander's sister, Tracy, laughed and said, "Relax, Dad. We're just getting settled." The plastic cake lid dug into Alexander's palm. Something inside him went very, very quiet. He needed to explain the story before the room he loved became a battlefield. Tracy was 2 years younger than him. In their house growing up, she was first the artist, then the free spirit, and later, she's just going through a rough patch. Their parents had done what they knew, sacrificed, defended, and minimized. Alexander had done what he knew. He had covered for her. First, it was textbooks, then a semester, then a down payment for her first apartment, just until Johnson's startup succeeded. But when the startup landed, it landed on Alexander's wallet. He paid for braces for their oldest daughter, Emily, when their dental plan had a strange deductible. He financed a used minivan when the bank said no. He co-signed a lease after an eviction. There were money transfer notes that read like diary entries. Tracy, electric bill. Johnson, job interview suit. Emily, school trip. Rent again, just this one last time. Every transfer had felt like control, like maybe he could smooth the family's rough edges. He was wrong. His parents had helped too, in smaller but constant ways. Deborah packed groceries into Tracy's trunk and called it cleaning out the pantry. Gabriel let Johnson use his tools to practice repairs that always ended up costing more to fix. The family chorus never changed. "You know your sister. Not everyone's like you, Alexander. You were born old." During residency, Alexander slept on thin call-room mattresses and sent money over broken Wi-Fi at 2 in the morning because the landlord is threatening to change the locks. Somewhere along the line, he became the family's credit card, swiped without ever checking the balance. When Alexander found the seaside home, he planned everything like a surgery. He placed the deed in a trust, naming his parents as lifetime beneficiaries. He paid the property taxes 20 years in advance, and prepaid the homeowners association fees. He replaced the locks and looked at the keys in his hand, feeling like he was holding a life raft. He told his parents a week before the anniversary so they could cry in private, not drown in attention. They drove down together. Gabriel touched the banister like it was a violin he used to own. Deborah opened every cabinet and exhaled. They sat on the deck listening to the gulls. Alexander said, "It's yours." Gabriel tried to speak, but his voice broke. Deborah smiled through tears and said, "It smells like lemon and open windows." Alexander stayed overnight on an air mattress to test the plumbing. Everything worked perfectly. The next morning, he returned to the city to perform a decompression surgery on a little boy with a tumor the size of a plum. The house stayed behind with his parents. Then things changed, because systems always do what systems do. On the second day, Tracy called Deborah. "Are you at a beach? Whose house is that?" Deborah, a terrible liar, said, "Oh, we're visiting a friend." By dinner, Tracy had already found the address. She had tracked it from a blurry sunset photo on Gabriel's Facebook post captioned "View from our porch." The next day, Tracy arrived with Johnson, their 2 kids, a dog, and an entitlement you could smell from the driveway. Later, Deborah told Alexander on the phone, her voice small and nervous. "They just wanted to see it. Then they said they're staying for the weekend. Is that okay?" Alexander said, "It isn't a rental, Mom." Deborah answered, "We'll talk when you come down." By Saturday morning, Gabriel texted, confused about what was happening. "Tracy keeps saying it's a family home. Can you come?" Then there was silence. Then a call Alexander couldn't answer because he was in surgery. Then a selfie from Tracy in his parents' kitchen, captioned, "Home sweet home" with a hashtag manifesting. Comments rolled in from her friends. "So deserved." "Beach era." One from Johnson read, "Finally, a place where the kids can be kids." Alexander's palm began to itch where the scalpel handle usually rested for hours. He sent a message to Gabriel after surgery. "Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Love you." Then he drove straight to the seaside house after discharge, rehearsing calm words in his mind. "We'll reset this. We'll breathe. We'll set rules." But when Alexander arrived, the front door was already open. Inside, Johnson's voice was booming. "You two are old. Stairs are dangerous. You'll fall. This is a family house. We're family. We'll manage it." Deborah tried to speak. "It's Alexander's gift." Johnson cut her off. "He gave it to you. You're giving it to us. Same difference." Tracy didn't even stand up. She just smirked and said, "Don't be dramatic, Mom. We'll handle the bookings." "Bookings?" Alexander repeated. Johnson waved toward the view. "Prime waterfront, peak season. I listed it this morning. Easy money. You two can have the downstairs during off-season." Alexander looked at Gabriel's hands trembling, just like they did when he was furious, but trying to stay calm. This was the same man who had once worked 3 jobs and still showed up at Alexander's high school orchestra concert in a greasy uniform. Now that same man was being told to move aside in a home he had just learned was his. Alexander had been raised to be useful, not loud. But Gabriel's last text had been a request Alexander couldn't file under later. He set the cake on the counter. It looked ridiculous sitting there among fast food bags and makeup kits. When Alexander spoke, his voice was steady. "Who told you this is your house?" Johnson rolled his eyes. "Family money, family house. Don't be weird." Tracy added in a sing-song voice, "We're not asking, Tommy. We're updating." His mother's face crumpled. "Alexander, can you just explain?" she asked, pointing at his father again. "He can explain from the porch." Tracy laughed. "Babe, stop. Dad knows we love him." His father's jaw worked. No sound came out. Something inside him clicked into place like a bayonet. "Everyone to the living room," he said. Not loud, just surgical loud. The kids paused their show. The dog stopped shredding a throw pillow. Johnson snorted but followed, because people like him always believed the room belonged to them. He stood by the mantel under the framed photo of his parents cutting a supermarket cake 40 years ago. He could feel his pulse in his thumbs. He pulled a folder from his bag and laid out 5 documents on the coffee table. Deed, he said, tapping the first page. It was recorded last week. The property was owned by the trust and named Gabriel and Deborah, his parents, as lifetime beneficiaries with an exclusive right of occupancy. Johnson squinted, as if the words were doing something to him in English. In plain English, he said, "You don't get a key, Johnson." Johnson laughed. "Bro, try and stop me." He tapped the second page. "Trust instrument," he said. The document named him as successor trustee. It gave him the duty to maintain the property for his parents' comfort. It also gave him the obligation to remove anyone who interfered with that. Tracy's voice slid sugary. "Alexander, you can't be serious. We're helping." He slid the third page across the table. It was a color screenshot of the short-term rental listing Tracy had posted using photos he had taken without permission. The description read entire home. The house rules said no owner on site. The availability calendar was booked every weekend through August. The payout information showed a bank account that ended in digits that matched Johnson's. He blurred the numbers for the kids. Johnson shifted. "So what? Your parents could use the cash." He put down the fourth paper. It was a printed group chat thread from last night that Tracy did not know Gabriel had forwarded to him. Her message showed in gray. "We'll get him on board. He always caves if mom cries. I'll guilt him about med school loans. So excited to finally have a beach base." Tracy reached for the phone. He covered it with his hand. He placed the fifth paper on the table, a laminated copy of the HOA rules. He ran his finger down to the clause. "No short-term rentals. Here's what's going to happen," he said. "You're going to pack your things today. You're going to delete the listing. You're going to text every person who booked and tell them the home is unavailable and issue refunds. You're going to apologize to mom and dad for frightening them in their own kitchen. And you're going to leave this house key on the table." Tracy blinked like she had misheard. Then she laughed, high and trilling. "Or what, Tommy?" she said. "I will perform my duty as trustee," he said. Johnson took a step toward him. "Duty this," he said, puffing his chest like they were 12. "Johnson, please," she whispered. "I don't like yelling. I like precision." So he kept it surgical. He set his phone on the table, screen up. On it were drafted emails. One to the HOA board with attachments, a second to their council, a third to the county recorder with the rental link, and a request to flag the parcel for illegal use. A text thread was open with a locksmith named James who was parked 2 houses down because he had called him from the highway when Gabriel sent that first confused message. James saw the screen and shifted his weight. "You wouldn't," Johnson said. "I would," he replied, "and I already did." Tracy reached for her mother. "Mom, tell him. Tell him this is family." Her mother did not look at her. She looked at him. "Alexander," she said, voice trembling, "do what you need to do." Johnson's face changed. He pointed to the door again, the same stupid gesture that had lit the fuse. "Old man out." He stepped between Johnson and his father. His hands were steady because he had held brains that pulsed like birds. "Point at my father again," he said quietly. "And the only door you're going through is the one James is about to lock from the outside." Silence fell. Not even the cartoons made a sound. Tracy tried one last angle. "You're cruel," she said. "You're abandoning your family." He exhaled. "I am done being your wallet," he said. "That's not abandonment. That's a boundary." Johnson muttered. "We'll see about that." He lunged for the folder. Maybe to grab the deed. Maybe to rip up paper like that could kill a trust. He simply picked up the papers, tucked them away, and turned to his father. "Dad," he said, "would you like to stay in your living room?" His father swallowed. "Yes." "Then everyone who doesn't live here go pack." No one moved. The doorbell rang. James, right on time. It took 3 hours because chaos always takes longer to unwind than to start. James changed the deadbolt while Johnson performed a quiet tantrum in the driveway. Whisper yelling at Tracy, kicking at the curb, calling someone to check a legal thing. The dog barked itself hoarse. The kids moved like embarrassed shadows, stuffing clothes into tote bags while half watching him as if he might explode. He didn't. He sat with his mother at the kitchen table and made tea in the kettle he had bought. She kept dabbing her eyes with a napkin. "I didn't want to tell you," she said. "I thought we could smooth it. They came in so fast. They said it would be easier for us this way. No stairs for your father, less to clean. They said they'd take over the hard parts." "The hard parts are the parts that mean ours," he said. She nodded. A small guilty nod he knew from every time she apologized for the weather. His father stared at the water. "I thought I'd be stronger," he said. "I should have told them to leave." "You called me," he said. That was the strong part. In the living room, he opened his laptop, connected to his hotspot, and canceled every illegal booking. He wrote each customer a message. Listing removed by owner. Refund issued. He attached the HOA rule for the one who threatened a review. He drafted a short letter to neighbors. "You may have seen cars. There was confusion. There will be no short-term rentals at 24C Spray." Tracy tried to reframe things at least 3 times. "First pass. We were just excited for them." She sat on a packed suitcase, her face arranged into soft hurt. "I wanted the kids to be around their grandparents more. You know how you work." Second pass. "It makes sense if you think about it. You're never there. They're getting old. We're the ones with energy." Third pass came when he didn't argue and didn't bite. She went for blood. "You think money makes you the parent, Alexander? It doesn't. You buy things so you don't have to be a person." "I bought a house for our parents," he said. "I didn't buy a permission slip for you to steal." She flinched at the word and went cold. "We'll remember this," she said. "I hope so," he replied. Johnson refused to hand over the key. "Come and take it," he smirked, which might have been cute if James hadn't installed the keypad lock 10 minutes earlier. He reached past Johnson, pressed 0, then reprogrammed it to a code his father chose while Johnson watched all his leverage sink in the sea air. Johnson tried another angle. "You think you're clever with your papers?" he said. "I know a guy. I know the county clerk." He responded evenly. "And your guy is about to tell you a trust beats a tantrum." Johnson stared at him like he was trying to decide if he was bluffing. He wasn't. When they finally carried boxes to the SUV, Tracy paused on the porch. "You could have just talked to me," she said. "I have been talking to you for 10 years, he replied. Her mouth tightened. "You'll regret this when they need help and you're not around." He looked at his mother pouring tea. He looked at his father's hand, finally still on the armrest. "I'm around," he said softly. "For them." They drove away. The dog barked at the window like it had an opinion about property law. After they left, the house changed temperature. It was the same air, but it no longer felt the same. He could hear the ocean through the screen, could hear his parents breathing in the calm that had finally returned. Alexander went room to room with a trash bag, picking up juice boxes, a plastic tiara, and 2 socks that didn't match. In the guest room drawer, he found a folded printout, Johnson's business plan. Johnson had estimated monthly profit at 5 times the HOA fine. In the margin, Tracy had written, "Alex won't say no if Mom cries." He put the paper down like it was something sharp. Deborah kept apologizing for the mess. Alexander kept saying, "It's just crumbs." When the sun slid down, Gabriel took his son's arm. "Son," he said, "I don't know how to say this without sounding like I failed you both." "You didn't fail us," Alexander said. "You gave us everything you had. You just gave too much to her for too long." "We all did." Gabriel nodded and didn't argue because it was true, and the truth was a relief. Alexander made a simple dinner. They ate on the deck. Deborah told a story about her first apartment. The one with the mouse she named Bernard because he only came out on Sundays. Gabriel laughed, the laugh Alexander only heard when his father wasn't being careful for everyone else. His phone buzzed like a nest of hornets. Texts appeared one after another. From Tracy, "You made Mom cry." From Johnson, "Cease and desist, Dr. Boy." From an unknown number that turned out to be Johnson's cousin, "We're coming down next weekend, right? We already invited people." Alexander put the phone face down and ate his salad. That night, he set up the alarm system. He installed a camera on the porch with a ridiculous smiling chime, so even his parents would like it. He put the security codes in a folder labeled "Happy Things" in big letters so Gabriel could read them without glasses. He left copies of the trust, the deed, and the HOA rules in a drawer called Boring Armor. On his way out, Deborah stood in the doorway with her sweater pulled tight. "I'm sorry it came to this," she said. "I'm not," Alexander answered. "It needed to." The next week, everything felt shaky, like a table with one short leg. Tracy began a loud campaign in the family chat. Alexander stole a house from the grandchildren. Screenshots from cousins he barely spoke to started rolling in. Tracy's social media stories were full of blank backgrounds and white text. "When money makes you cruel." Then came a photo of Alexander's car in the driveway with the caption, "Some people think they can buy love." He didn't reply. He built a small wall around his piece. He called their aunt, the one who still said what she meant. He explained simply that the house belonged to his parents and would remain that way as long as they lived. He asked her not to carry their pain as gossip. She said, "Finally, Alexander." And that was that. He wrote one email to Tracy and Johnson, polite, firm, and boring. He included 3 bullet points. 1. All contact regarding the house goes through me. 2. You do not have permission to enter the property. 3. Any violation will result in action from the HOA and our attorney. He copied himself and no one else. Then he set that same email as an auto-response to any future messages from them about the house. He promised himself he would not negotiate with a story that always ended the same way. 2 days later, a notification pinged. "New booking request, Sea Spray Cottage." Johnson had relisted the property under a different account using a photo of the back deck. Alexander forwarded everything, deed and trust attached, to the rental platform's trust and safety department. 10 minutes later, the listing was removed and the user banned. He didn't feel triumph. He felt like a janitor cleaning a stadium after a game, just doing what needed to be done. Gabriel called one morning to say the house smelled like toast and salt, and that he had slept through the night for the first time in months. Deborah sent a photo of her feet on the deck rail, ankles crossed, nail polish bright pink like when Alexander was 5, and thought she looked like a movie star. They looked light. In the background of all that peace, Tracy kept scratching at the walls. She sent Alexander a payment request in an app labeled emotional damages. She mailed their parents a letter that began, "As your primary caregiver," a sentence that had never been true. Johnson posted a meme of a syringe with a $sign, as if Alexander had stolen organs for money. But their noise didn't change the air in the little blue house. One night, Tracy called from a block number. Alexander answered, because he was either soft or hopeful. She went quiet for a moment after hearing his voice. Then she spoke in a whisper. "Alex, listen. We're behind. Johnson lost his contract. We're going to lose the apartment. The kids." Alexander closed his eyes. There is a point, he thought, where empathy becomes gasoline. "Tracy," he said, "I will not discuss the house." "So money matters more to you than family?" she snapped, her voice turning sharp. "Boundaries," he said calmly, "are how I can be family and not a bank." She hung up. He let the silence sit like a patient in recovery. Monitored, protected, painful, but healing. 2 weekends later, Alexander drove down early in the morning. Coffee in a thermos, stethoscope still around his neck from habit. The water had that flat silver look, as if it were resting between breaths. He fixed a sticky door hinge. He placed tennis balls on the garage shelf at the right distance, so Gabriel could park without bumping the wall. He labeled the breakers because his father loved labels. Deborah made pancakes, burned the first batch, and laughed. They sat together at the table, talking about groceries, about their neighbor Monica who left shells in a jar on the fence, and about the pelican that refused to act dignified. No one said Tracy's name for an hour. It felt like a clean countertop. After breakfast, Deborah touched his hand. "I'm going to talk to your sister," she said. "Not to argue, just to say no." "I'm not asking you to choose," Alexander said. "I'm not interested in that scorched earth thing where people declare winners. I just want you and Dad to have peace on your porch." Deborah smiled softly. "It's not choosing," she said. "It's stopping the pretending." Gabriel cleared his throat. "I should have taught that better," he said. "I taught you to work. I didn't teach you to stop." "You taught me to love and to stay," Alexander replied. "I'm just learning how to do that without being eaten." Gabriel laughed, low and grateful. Alexander walked the perimeter, tightened the gate latch, and checked the camera angles. He printed a little sign for the entry table. "Welcome home, Gabriel and Deborah." It felt corny, but exactly right. Later, alone on the deck, he thought about the headline his sister would write if she could. "I gifted my parents a house and ruined my family." But that wasn't the truth. The truth was that he stopped feeding the troll under the bridge. He made a gift, and then guarded it so it didn't become a weapon. He used to believe that handing out money kept the peace. It didn't. It only kept the noise quiet while resentment fermented in the walls. Boundaries are louder at first, he realized. But then there comes a hush no one can fake. The messages slowed. Tracy moved on to other audiences. Johnson found a new hill to throw tantrums on. Gabriel and Deborah started saying small no's that sounded like yes to their own lives. "No, we can't watch the kids this weekend." "No, we can't drive across town to fix your car." And then they started saying yes. Yes to early sandwiches, to naps, to pointing out boats with funny names. A month later, Alexander's 16-year-old niece, Tracy's daughter, sent him a message. "The house is pretty. Grandma looks happy there." He typed back, "Come visit with Grandma's permission." No bookings, just pancakes. She sent a laughing emoji and then okay. A tiny truce with someone who hadn't broken anything. After a long night of surgery, Alexander drove to the house because he needed to see it glowing from the inside. Through the window, he saw his father reading in his favorite chair, glasses sliding down his nose. The same way he used to sit in their old apartment when the only light came from the TV glow. Deborah had a soft blanket over her lap, and a puzzle spread out on the table. The sound of the ocean drifted in through the windows and settled under everything like a deep hum. Alexander didn't go in. He stood quietly on the sidewalk and let the peaceful scene speak for itself. For the first time in years, he understood something clearly. Love, he realized, was not covering someone's bad behavior with your own body. It wasn't pretending chaos was fine just because the person causing it shared your blood. Love was a house filled with good light and doors that locked when they needed to. Love was paperwork that held strong when people didn't. Love was telling your parents to rest and telling everyone else, "No, I am not their bank. I am not their scapegoat. I am not the emergency exit they run to when the fire they started gets too hot." He was their son, a man with a job that required precision. And finally, he had learned that precision belonged at home too. If his sister ever wanted to stand on that deck again and look out at the water with their parents, she could. But she would need to come with empty hands and a true apology, not a business plan. She could be family without trying to take control of the thermostat or the trust. Until then, the house would stand firm. The locks would click each night. The seagulls would argue. The windows would sing when the wind came in from the bay. Inside, his parents breathed easily.